wear my glasses anymore. This is amazing for me because I've worn glasses since junior high, and now I don't have to.
Game day is coming, and are you ready to represent the Blue Raiders? At Raider Tees, we've got the largest selection of officially licensed Middle Tennessee gear in town. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, even tailgating essentials. You name it, we've got it. No more searching through random stores. Everything you need is right here at 111 East MTCS Road, right across from MTCS. Get game day ready at Raider Tees. Bigger, better, and go blue.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. More people depend on WGNS for local news that matters. We're your local news leader. News Radio, WGNS.
It's 5 before 5 and time to get an update on Good Neighbor events.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
This is a paid legal ad.
You've probably heard it a million times. If you're injured, call a lawyer. And you probably haven't because you don't know how much it will cost, how long it will take, or even if you have a case. At the law offices of John Day, we provide a free initial consultation because we understand that folks don't want to pay a lawyer only to find out they don't have a case. If you think we can help, we do so on a contingency basis, which means we only get paid if you do. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
Now, Good Neighbor Events. Here's Bart Walker.
This Saturday morning from 10 to 11, it's the Pixel Miners over at the Wilderness Station in Barfield Crescent Park. Are you a pro at mining rocks and crafting in popular video games? Put your knowledge to the test and see how accurate the game is compared to our real-world rocks. There is a $5 fee this Saturday from 10 to 11 at the Wilderness Station in Murfreesboro's Barfield Crescent Park. Circle Monday, March 30th on your calendar. That's not this week, but next week. And Monday, March 30th is the National Walk in the Park Day. Monday, March 30th. Did you realize that yoga improves your flexibility and balance? It supports joint health, enhances your cardiovascular health, and reduces inflammation. Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department offers yoga classes at Sportscom, the Patterson Community Center, and the St. Clair Senior Center. For information about the yoga classes, phone Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
When illness or injury turns everyday moments into uphill battles, there are medical professionals who step in with skill, compassion, and unwavering dedication. My name is Joey P. I'm CEO of Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, and we are proud to highlight this month's MMC Heart for Healing recipient.
We recognize Dr. Sean Horwitz, a surgeon at MMC, whose reputation is built on as much his heart as it is his hands. Dr. Horwitz makes every patient feel like his priority. Whether performing complex robotic surgery or providing life-changing breast care, he combines elite technical precision with a rare, compassionate touch that truly defines him. Dr. Sean Horwitz, our MMC Heart for Healing.
If a doctor, nurse, or medical professional has made a difference in your life, tell WGNS. Help us recognize the medical heroes in our community by nominating them for the MMC Heart for Healing Award, and help us recognize the medical heroes in our community.
Don't let concerns about today's events derail your long-term financial strategy. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Lee Colvin, and I'm here to help. We can work together to understand the impact of these events and make sure that your goals are top of mind. While you can't control market volatility, we'll help focus on what you can control. We can connect in several virtual ways. Start by giving me a call at 615-907-7056. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stones River Manor, the only faith-based nonprofit home for seniors in Rutherford County.
Everyone is so friendly. They really want to make you happy here.
Stones River Manor offers independent living.
When you get to our age and you live in a house, there's always things that's got to be done. Living here, I don't have to worry about anything.
You don't have a yard to mow. You don't have a roof to repair.
Just what you want to do outside.
Start the journey. They're near the intersection of Haynes Drive and Memorial Boulevard. Online at stonesrivermanor.com.
WGNSradio.com. It's All That's News with Matt Lane on News Radio WGNS.
Around the country, around the world, CBS News is next.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS Murfreesboro, W270AF Murfreesboro, W263AI Murfreesboro, Smyrna.
CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Jennifer Kuiper. President Trump is urging Republicans to move forward with a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security without Democrats and get airport security lines moving again. CBS's Shauna Mizell at Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston talks with an unpaid TSA officer.
It's pretty much a disaster, especially financially.
Many, like Greg Jones, are bracing for a second missed paycheck Friday if Congress doesn't reach a deal.
We're political pawn pieces or something. It feels like all of our lives are being messed with.
Houston airport officials are expecting even more passenger traffic through Friday with big events in town. They are warning travelers to give themselves extra time and remain flexible.
President Trump is postponing his threatened strikes against Iran's power plants. CBS's Linda Kenyon reports from the White House.
The president says talks with Iran are going very well, so he won't attack Iranian energy sites, at least for now. In a post on social media, Trump wrote, quote, "As per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6th, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time." The president also stated talks are ongoing despite what he called erroneous statements to the contrary.
Uncertainty persists about what is happening with the war with Iran. President Trump says the talks are ongoing with Iran, and Iran says there are no talks. At the same time, CBS's Chris Livesay in Dubai reports Israel's military says it has killed a key figure in Iran's military.
They say they took out the commander of the IRGC Navy. In fact, according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this is the man responsible for blocking the Strait of Hormuz near where I am here in the Gulf.
Deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife have appeared in federal court in New York City for a preliminary hearing following their capture in January. Their lawyers have argued that the U.S. is violating Maduro's rights by not allowing Maduro to use Venezuelan government funds for his legal defense. CBS's Bradley Blackburn with more on where Maduro is being detained.
Law enforcement sources tell CBS News that since his January arrest, Maduro has been kept under special administrative measures at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn in a secure unit for the most high-risk detainees.
The U.S. Treasury says that in honor of the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, President Trump's signature will appear on future U.S. paper currency, along with the Secretary of the Treasury, marking the first time in history for a sitting president. This is CBS News.
I want to know what's going on in the world.
I'm Tony.
There are big questions that all of us are asking. I want to get you the answers.
How are you?
I'm Tony DeCopel. Join me on the CBS Evening News.
You know that big bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement. Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered-down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent. You know that big bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement. Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop stop paying for
Good afternoon. Slow-go traffic out here in a couple of spots like 40 east and west here at Fessler's. Working your way out through the Mount Juliet area. Watch for radar. It's gotten a little bit busier out through there in the last few minutes going eastbound on 40 where it connects with 840. It's dragging again. Northbound on 65. It's been a little bit of a challenge this afternoon. Extra slow traffic on 65 north just trying to get into Goodlettsville. Hey, don't let a slipping transmission make things worse on your car or truck. Bring your car to Amco Transmissions, located 3020 Nolensville Pike. I'm Commander Chuck. You're on time traffic.
Premier 6 Theater on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Let's all go to the movies.
Check out what's showing at murfreesboromovies.com. Popcorn popped fresh daily.
Movies like a good old music.
Premier 6 on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Rutherford weather.
Lows around 62. Tonight, under clear skies. Mainly cloudy skies tomorrow. Rain showers likely. High of 77. I'm WGNS meteorologist Derek Height. Currently 83.
We do it your way at Sir Pizza.
You can order Murfreesboro's favorite pizza online. SirPizzaTN.com. Carry out and delivery for dinner tonight at SirPizzaTN.com.
We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com.
From the first pitch to the final buzzer, this is where the conversation starts. All sports talk on WGNS and Big G TV, covering the Preps, MTSU, news from Tennessee and nationwide. Now, here's All Sports Talk on the Good Neighbor Network.
And welcome back to another episode of All Sports Talk here on the Good Neighbor Network. That is WGNS. Dylan Simmons coming to you live. Hope you've had a fantastic Thursday so far. A little bit of a warmer Thursday, all things considered. It's been pretty warm in the mid-state. We're looking at highs topping out in the mid-80s today, which is a great sign if you're a fan of summer. Now, as you've heard from me before on this program, I go back and forth with the weather. Sometimes I like it being warmer. Sometimes I kind of miss the cold. I think a good in-between is kind of what we've had earlier this week, which is 70 degrees, 72, whatever the case may be. I think that's fine. The one thing I didn't like about it, though, was that you'd wake up and you'd have to have your jacket on because it was 30 or 40 outside. And then later on in the afternoon, you have to take that jacket off because we're talking 70 degrees. So I didn't like that inconsistency, but I guess it did make for comfortable afternoon conditions. Well, now it's just hot, so at least we've got a little bit of consistency from that standpoint, so you don't have to worry whether or not you're going to have to wear your jacket or your short sleeve or whatever the case is. You've got a clear answer on that. But I'm not the biggest fan of the heat, but we make do, right? We make do. We're also going to make do and do more than that here on All Sports Sports Talk tonight, if I can talk correctly. We've got a great show coming up for you. We're going to talk more MTSU women's basketball. I'll give my take on Rick Insel's retirement, Matt Insel being hired, and the game against Cleveland State, which you can hear tonight on WGNS. We're also going to talk the NASCAR Cup Series and their race at Darlington this past weekend, and Tyler Reddick continuing to make history. And we will also discuss the fallout from the first weekend of March Madness and what the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 have in store for the men's bracket. So all of that coming up tonight on the show. Let's start by talking about what we mentioned last night, and that is the retirement of Rick Insel from the MTSU women's basketball program. And if you haven't heard our episode last night with Jacob Burgess, I would highly advise that you do that, because that episode really put together a lot of good things and really kind of weave the story together is what I'm trying to get at as to why Rick made this decision, what his incentive is behind it, and what he's trying to do now that he's retired. So I would highly recommend you take a look back at that episode to see kind of the basis for what we're talking about here. But this is, no matter what way you slice it, a big transition point and a big moment for not just MTSU women's basketball, but MTSU athletics in general. And really, there's a lot of big transitions going on right now. I mean, Sydney McPhee, of course, retiring from MTSU as the president. Now you've got Coach Insel retiring retiring. So there's a lot of change taking place, and we'll see how that kind of makes things work as time goes on for MTSU. But a lot of change, no matter what way you slice it. But it's both a bittersweet, but also an exciting time when you look at it from that perspective. But I did want to take this segment and speak personally on how big of an impact that Rick Insell has had for the Lady Raiders, because he's had a tremendous impact, and the fact that they're still going on in this season and have a WNIT game tonight, which we'll get into a little bit later. I felt like it was apropos to talk about this now. So Rick has been obviously a tremendous coach for the Lady Raiders, and what he has managed for 20 plus years is a run that is seemingly virtually impossible in this day and age. I think sometimes that we get so caught up in the hoopla of the sports world to really appreciate the times that we get to live in. A lot of times we get excited or we get, frustrated by what a team did or didn't do. We talk about, well, I didn't like this because this team won or this guy won. Think about like Tom Brady, for instance. He may have went out and dominated the NFL for years, but I remember, living in the time of Brady's domination and being like, well, man, I kind of wish this would stop. This is getting a little annoying. But as a result of that, I don't know if I really appreciated the consistency of the greatness that we got from that. Same reason that I'm a lot more receptive to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs than a lot of people. A lot of people really do not like the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm sure that I'm not the first person to tell you that, and you may very well really dislike them yourselves. Here's what I will say about it. I think that greatness in the moment is annoying. This is kind of cliche to say. It is annoying in the moment, but if you look at it from the perspective of the league as a whole and the history that you're seeing, it really takes on a whole new meaning. At least that's the way that I kind of see it. And I think that the same could go for MTSU women's basketball and Rick Insell. There are such high expectations that have been thrust upon this program over the years that sometimes it's easy for the history that Rick accomplished to get lost in all the other hoopla going on. So I think that's an important thing that we should remember, and hopefully we did remember when it came to Rick and what he's been able to do, and why it's so important to appreciate what he's doing even now as the Lady Raiders basketball coach. Nothing short of once in a generation as far as head coaches go. There have been many coaches who have come through the MTSU athletics doors, but I don't know if anybody has had the impact and has left the influence that Rick Insell has in his time in Murfreesboro. 12 NCAA tournaments for Middle Tennessee, 7 All-Americans have been produced under Rick Insell, 5 WNBA draft picks. The accolades just keep going on. Multi-time conference champion both in the regular season and the tournament. There's a reason. I'll just put it this way. There's a reason that even in a state that has produced women's basketball greats like Pat Summitt, maybe the best women's basketball head coach of all time, Rick Insell is still considered one of the best of his generation. That goes to show you how respected that he was. And you ask a lot of people, both in the high school sphere and in the college sphere, they'll tell you about Rick Insell. He has left an impact on a lot of people, not just in the mid-state, but all across the country. And I think his work has been rightfully appreciated from that standpoint. And if you want evidence of that, I would take a look at the MTSU women's basketball social media page. They've got a lot of quotes talking about Rick's retirement and what it means to other coaches, and they'll tell you just how special he is. So I would, again, highly encourage you to look at that as well on the MTSU women's basketball social media platforms. What I find remarkable about Rick is that he never wavered in what worked. He was quick to adapt with the times, absolutely, but he was never one to shift what had already been working for years on end. A lot of times we see coaches overreact to something and they end up trying to fundamentally change something about themselves or how they handle their coaching. It's so easy, especially in our modern age of expectation, people saying, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, why haven't you gotten the team to this point, to be like, well, man, I got to fundamentally change how I'm doing this. Obviously, the way that it's working for me has not been working, so I got to just completely change everything. Rick was never that kind of guy. He had a philosophy. He had a mission that he brought to Murfreesboro when he first got here, and he never really wavered in that. He was always a guy who believed in hard work, still obviously believes in hard work, integrity, and getting the best out of players. And that never went away in the 20-plus years that he coached for the Lady Raiders and continues to coach for the Lady Raiders. Keep forgetting he's got at least one more game coming up tonight, hopefully more. But it has always worked what his philosophy's been. And I think that he understood, as well as anybody, that what you do sometimes as a coach will work in any era. If you have a certain way of doing things that has success, it can work no matter what era of basketball you coach in, play in, whatever the case may be. And Rick understood that if he put together the right plays and did the right things to get these ladies in the right position, they were going to win no matter what. Now, that's not to say that he didn't adapt. Far from it. Rick went through several different eras when it came to college women's basketball. There were a lot of changes in the sport. He even talked about this. The sport looks completely different now than it did when he first started. But that's not the reason that Rick, is in the retirement phase of his career that he is now. He's simply retiring because it was the right time, and he wants to spend more time with his family and do things like that. It wasn't because of the changes, and I think that's important to remember, is that Rick Insell was always up to the task, and he was ready to tackle whatever women's basketball had to throw at him, and continues to remain that way for MTSU. And he understood that if you have good enough players and a good enough program that can execute on your mission, you're going to be, eating gravy no matter what the case is. And that core identity, that philosophy never changed. And obviously, it was for the better for MTSU women's basketball. One thing as well that you need to recognize with Coach Insell is that he is a man who's all about loyalty, and he's never wavered in wanting to stay with MTSU and be the best possible coach here in the Mid-State and here in Murfreesboro. Here's the thing. And I know that this is probably never going to be admitted publicly, but I'm sure that Rick had some offers to potentially go elsewhere and coach for a big Power 4 school. I mean, that there have got to be programs that were knocking on Rick's door to be like, hey, we'd love for you to come coach here. You can get X amount of money, and you'd have access to X level of players, and you could do all these great things. And there's an alternate timeline maybe where Rick does take that opportunity and maybe does go somewhere else. But I think that Rick understood that sometimes you get the perfect match of coach and program, and there's no need to leave. And Rick has always been about the mid-state community, and he understood that him, MTSU, this whole area, they just fit together. And he's been in the mid-state for most of his life. And he's always been a guy that's been dedicated about what it had to offer. The thing about Rick is that he's been coaching mid-state basketball for even longer than he's been coaching MTSU women's basketball. Of course, he forged a dynamic legacy in Shelbyville as the coach of the Golden Eaglettes, and as somebody who calls for the girls basketball team for Shelbyville Central, all you got to do is go to Shelbyville and check out the Rick Insell Gymnasium with his mural plastered on the wall and the 10 state championships that he was able to bring home, including 7 in a row. This guy is an absolute legend down there, and for good reason. And Shelbyville's not that far from Murfreesboro. I mean, you're talking maybe a 45 minute drive away. So Rick was already deeply ingrained then, and he just continued to hold that when he eventually got hired by MTSU. And you got to give credit to the athletics department back then for making that decision. It's rare to see a high school coach just immediately move up to get a college job, but Rick was an exception, and obviously he was a good exception because he has completely shifted the identity of the MTSU women's basketball program and what he's been able to do. Personally, I remember hearing about Rick's teams before I even got to MTSU and just how good that they were. I came in with the impression that he was obviously a good coach, but when you're young and when you're learning about a program and learning about the university you're going to, you maybe don't fully appreciate just how good a team or a program is until you see it for yourself. And now that I've been watching this team and covering them for about 4 years, I can safely say that he is even better than I was expecting. Not only has he been fun to talk to for interviews, which I've had the great opportunity to do for ESPN+, but he's just an interesting guy to listen to when it comes to press conferences, social media, etc. What I always took away is that he cared about the players and the program, and genuinely, he wanted to get the best out of them while also keeping them near the top of the mountain. And I think that's an important thing to remember about Rick. Some guys are not, or are going to be satisfied maybe with maybe not winning a championship every year, but being in contention every once in a while. Rick was not that guy, and he is not that guy. He continues to be a coach who is just completely dedicated in helping his team to win championships, and he's kept his foot on the throttle all the way through. That standard and that ideal to be a champion never slipped from this program. And I've gotten to see that in person as a student at MTSU, and I gotta say, 2023-24 as an undergrad and sports media student, that team making their run into the NCAA tournament, winning the Conference USA title, and beating Louisville in that comeback, going head-to-head with Angel Reese and LSU, those are some of the most fun moments as both a broadcaster and a student that I can remember following an athletics program at MTSU. So I got to give Rick a lot of credit for that, and I appreciate the moments that team provided, and I'm sure they did the same for a lot of you. All that to be said is Rick is a guy who has done so much for this program, and he's going to keep doing a lot for this program even after his retirement. He'll still be involved in some capacity, and I know that for sure. And he's been a tremendous figure. He will continue to be a tremendous figure, and he has completely turned around this Lady Raider program and made it into one of the best in the state, and probably, I would say, the best program at MTSU athletics-wise. So credit to Rick Insel and that program, and happy retirement, Rick. Hope you enjoy it, and best of luck throughout the WNIT. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll talk about the new coach of the MTSU women's basketball team coming up next year, a name that Rick is very familiar with, and we'll also talk about the NASCAR Cup Series going to Darlington this past weekend. All that and more coming up next on All Sports Talk.
Hey folks, it's Chip Walters from Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, helping Middle Tennessee make smart moves in a fast-moving market. Whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring your options, you deserve someone who knows this community and treats your goals like their own. From first-timers to long-time homeowners, I'm here to guide you with clarity, confidence, and a steady hand. When you're ready to make the next move, start with someone you trust. Visit ChooseChip.net and let's make your 2026 move the right move.
Lace up your best kicks for a night of impact benefiting First Shot. Join us for the annual Sneaker Ball presented by Venture Express. Spend Sunday, April 26th with NFL Hall of Famer and Super Bowl MVP Marcus Allen. The event kicks off at 6 with a VIP meet and greet at 5. Reserve your table today. Call Coach Andy Herzer at 615-631-5312. We'll see you at the Sneaker Ball benefiting First Shot on April 26th.
The residents at Stones River Manor love the environment.
I just really like it. Of course, I'm in an apartment and I can come and go and do kind of what I want to.
Stones River Manor, serving the community since 1977.
My husband felt much better when he passed away that I was taken care of here. We got married in 58 and in 60 he went in Air Force.
Stones River Manor in Murfreesboro, near the intersection of Haynes Drive and Memorial Boulevard.
Your pet is more than just a pet. They're your family's fearless protector, your fetching athlete, and your crumbs on the floor detector. The warm, snuggly heartbeat at your feet. Hello, I'm State Farm Agent Deb Insel, and I understand why your pet means so much to you. Did you know that State Farm and Trupanion have teamed up to give your furry family members the protection they deserve? Pet medical insurance. It's another way State Farm is here to help life go right for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hi, I'm Wade Hayes, owner of Toots Good Food and Fun. I strongly believe that volunteers make a positive difference in the quality of life here in our community.
Lynn Clayton is very involved in this community. She is a trustee with Oakland's Mansion and goes out of her way to preserve local history. She is also very involved with the Women's Club of Murfreesboro and Murfreesboro First Presbyterian Church. Thank you, Lynn Clayton, for volunteering your time and talents to make this an even better community. Lynn Clayton is our Toots Outstanding Volunteer.
At Toots, we strongly believe that it's important for every one of our citizens to give some of their time and talent back into the community. And we want to honor these individuals with a Toots gift certificate good at any of our Rutherford County locations. 860 Northwest Broad Street, on Church Street in the Barfield area, in Smyrna on Sam Ridley, and Toots West on Franklin Road at Rucker Lane.
Good afternoon. It continues to run slow 65 northbound at Rivergate Parkway. It's been a challenge trying to get up into Goodlettsville here the last hour or so. It's busy on the South Loop. Watching it build even more south of Nashville down into Brentwood, Franklin through Williamson County on 65. It's going to slow down through there, especially when you get closer to Spring Hill on 65 near 840. STR Towing and Recovery says, hey, call them 24/7 if you need a tow for a car or a truck here in Middle Tennessee. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
And welcome back to All Sports Talk on a Thursday night. Dylan Simmons joining you from the Good Neighbor Network here on WGNS and live in the WGNS studio. Hope you've had a great Thursday night and hope you're looking forward to more great sports action this weekend. Got a lot of stuff coming up here at MTSU. Of course, the women's basketball game tonight against Cleveland State. WNIT, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the show, but obviously that's going to be a massive game for MTSU as they look to keep their postseason alive. And MTSU baseball is in town this weekend as they get set to host the New Mexico State Aggies. Dick Palmer will be on the call, and those games, as best I understand, will also be on WGNS this weekend. Friday at 6, Saturday at 3, and Sunday at 1. So make sure you check out women's basketball and the baseball team this weekend. And also MTSU tennis is going to be around this weekend. Men's team, I believe, will host tomorrow. Women's team will also be in action this weekend as well. So lots of sports action, as always, taking place with MTSU Athletics. And I know that basketball season's just about over, but that does not mean that the sports calendar has stopped. Far from it. There's a lot of stuff that you'll want to check out. Of course, we'll have the Blue Raider Insider Report with more information coming up on that later in the show. As far as MTSU women's basketball goes, we're not done talking about it tonight. We got a lot to talk about in this segment as well. Matt Insell, the new head coach of the Lady Raiders, the son of head coach Rick Insell, and of course the former assistant coach, and well, I guess in some ways still current assistant coach with MTSU, but he is the head coach in waiting for it next year. Jacob and I also discussed this last night. Not a huge shocker, I think, to anyone, and trust me, that's a good thing. That is 100% a good thing. That's not a surprise, because I think he is the guy that a lot of people wanted to take that job, and for good reason, because he's got all the credentials and all the reason to be in that position. We'll get more into that in just a second. What I think is important to consider with Matt is the journey that he took to get to this point in his life. And his story, in many ways, is a lot different than his father's. He's kind of like a prodigal son, for lack of a better term. So Matt went out to forge his own legacy after working as a basketball player in his younger years. Of course, he coached at several different schools, including working as the head coach of Ole Miss from 2013 to 2018. Matt is a guy who has been trained in a lot of different basketball disciplines. Even before his coaching days, he was a player, and a pretty solid player at that. If you ask Miss Deb Insell, and I'm sure Rick himself, they would tell you that Matt could play some basketball. So he obviously learned from a younger age what the game's like, how the game's played, and how to relate to players. But he was, much like his father, more brought up in the coaching circle, and he did a good job of adjusting to it rather quickly. In Matt's younger years, he was kind of viewed as a future coaching superstar, and he had all the tools to do it. But the important thing to remember is that he was a very, very young guy. But in those younger days, he was able to travel to a lot of different schools and learn under a lot of different coaches. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Sometimes you don't want to be a one-trick pony. You want to be able to know from a lot of coaches what to do, what the strategy should be, and how to handle certain situations. conversations, you have multiple approaches and different things that you're able to take away from those conversations. And Matt's got that in his back pocket. And I think even now that he uses a lot of that information he gleaned from other coaches in what he does. So that's been really cool to see and really cool to keep track of as time's gone on. But again, he was the head coach of Ole Miss from 2013 to 2018. What's interesting to hear about that, though, and he mentioned this in his press conference, is that he's always held MTSU in high regard, and he always thought of it as a place to come back to eventually. I thought that was really cool to hear because, MTSU maybe isn't as high in terms of notoriety as a place like Ole Miss or a place like Alabama or any SEC program, as a matter of fact, but it didn't matter to Matt. He still held this place as the place he wanted to end up at. And I love that about him because personally, I'm a guy who I assume much like Rick and Matt values a lot of loyalty and values being dedicated to a certain program. And you can have different colleges that you learn from, obviously, but if there's a program that you want to stick around and you want to be around, then that means the whole world to you if you get hired by them, and you would give up almost anything else to be a part of that. And honestly, that's the way I feel about MTSU and being able to broadcast stuff here. I'm the exact same way because I feel like MTSU, and Matt probably sees it as well, it's a special place with special people, and the energy around this program is unlike anything else. So I think Matt and I share the same kind of wavelength when it comes to that. So I thought that was really cool to hear, and I personally appreciated hearing that from Matt. But after he got let go by Ole Miss, he came to Murfreesboro and worked under his father as an assistant head coach for a number of years. And here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people think about is that Matt was kind of his own man for a long time. He was going out there working as a head coach at an SEC program, a big one at that, and he ended up moving to MTSU again, and he had to kind of change up maybe his role and his standing as a basketball coach, and he had to kind of put himself to a level where he had to say to himself, I don't understand everything when it comes to women's basketball and basketball in general. I need to learn from somebody else, and that somebody else needs to be my father. I mean, you could argue he was being his own man before, and now he's completely turning that around and choosing to be an assistant head coach. So that took some humility, and that took a lot of guts to be able to do something like that. But Matt was willing and able, and he was ready to learn from his father, and obviously he did a lot of learning and for lack of a better term, was able to grow up a little bit, gain more experience and more trust in himself and his abilities. You got to understand, he was 29, 30 years old when he took the job at Ole Miss, which gets lost in a lot of this. Super young guy, a lot to learn about the world, a lot to learn about basketball. I know it's weird to hear that from a 22-year-old, but I can understand that I got a lot to learn, and I got a lot of growing up to do as well. I don't think you fully ever do grow up, but you do learn more as time goes on, and life teaches you those experiences and what they mean to you. So Matt was trying to swim in very deep water at a very young age in those coaching years, and that pushed him to be a certain way. I think that experience is going to pay huge dividends for him down the line, especially in this job with the Lady Raiders. Now, the thing about Matt is that he knows how this team works just as well as anyone, and he's been active within Rick's staff for a while, so he has all the insight and know-how to get the job done and get his team in position to win. What I found also really interesting and awesome to see was how he developed as a coach under his father. And I even saw that coming together a little bit in real time just from my time here at MTSU. And I did more broadcast for MTSU as time went on in my older years, and I kind of got to see how Matt grew as a coach as time passed as well. In the past, I noticed he'd be a bit more, not to say he was a reserved coach, but he kind of let Rick take the lead a little bit when it came to what was said in the huddle and how they wanted to execute the next play, do whatever the case is. As time went on, he began to take the lead in the huddle, and he began to become the guy who the players leaned on a little bit more in in-game situations. And that really played out this year. I was on the sideline for MTSU versus Tennessee for that women's basketball game, and I got to watch watched them in the huddle a couple times, and Matt was kind of the guy who was leading the charge for them, getting them in the right position, making sure that they were ready to go in that spot. And it showed that Matt is a guy who has grown into more of a leader, and he's developed the skills needed to be that head coach again. He's recaptured that confidence, and he knows what he has to do. He's not going out there, just kind of winging it. He's giving it his all. So that was really cool to witness in real time, was seeing his confidence grow in that spot. He's certainly got all the tools to succeed, and he's got one heck of a teacher, too. Rick Insell obviously can definitely get him where he needs to go through both advice and experience. Coming out of the Rick Insell pipeline, it's no small thing. And being a guy who can constantly get information from him, that's huge. I mean, that is an invaluable commodity, to be able to glean any information that you can from Rick Insell, because there's a lot of information that Rick can deliver and that Matt can digest as a result. So it'll be great for Matt to have him always as a pipeline to go to in case he's kind of unsure about a certain situation. You've got Rick Insell there to help out. So I think that's another huge thing that people will need to keep in mind with Matt going into next year. And like I said before in the first segment tonight, Rick is not going to be going away entirely. I know that he'll still be around. He'll still be watching some games, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help Matt out in certain situations. So while Rick will be no longer an active coach with the program, he'll still very much have some sort of role in helping Matt out and helping keep this program stable. And I'm sure Matt will certainly appreciate that. Now, what I am curious to see is how Matt's going to do next year with this team, since they've got some interesting pieces and a potential tremendous group waiting in the wings. The biggest hanging thread is whether Elena Contreras will come back. Still waiting to hear word on that, but if she does, that is a massive get for MTSU. Then you add on the two sensational freshmen, Blair Bogus, Macy Pfeiffer. They may have been the two best freshmen in CUSA this year. That would be a great unit to run it back with. I think that group of talent, that core, those three specifically, those are going to be players who, if you bring them back for another season and they're all three together, they could certainly rival some of the better cores that MTSU women's basketball's had, because by the end of this season, they've really been putting things together and becoming better players night in and night out. So I would expect that if Contreras is able to come back, I'm going to be very excited for what Matt's going to be able to do in his first year. And by the way, if people were concerned about talent slipping, that's not going to be a huge issue with Matt. He was, in many ways, the chief recruiter for MTSU, even under the Rick era, and that talent pool is still very rich for MTSU. Just go look up the recruiting classes, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There are some tremendous recruits waiting in the wings, and that's not going to drop off at all with the switch from Rick to Matt. If anything, Matt could actually reinforce his recruiting strength as the head coach. Now, this is me being a little more optimistic, but I do think if everything goes right, MTSU under Matt Insell could become, and in many ways they already are, but they could continue to be a G5 powerhouse and a standard for what teams at the G5 level can be. Because the thing about MTSU, especially under Rick, is that they were able to maintain a lot of talent and keep a lot of those core players. I think Matt can do that as well, and I think that he can achieve Rick's dream of taking this team to the Sweet 16 in the women's bracket. I certainly believe they have the capability to do that. And if they return Contreras next year and Pfeiffer and Bogus continue to improve, that's going to be a scary team in Conference USA. I don't know if anyone's going to want to play them. So, very excited for that and excited to see how Matt Insell does. Best of luck to him and the Lady Raiders next year. Thing is, though, their season's not over this year. They've got a game tonight. Quick preview here against Cleveland State. This will be on WGNS here right after the show. Pre-game starting at 6 p.m. Cleveland State third in the Horizon League this year, 25-9 overall. If you don't know much about them, 18-1 at home. So the Vikings, the Lady Vikings, they're a really, really good team. Three players that average over 10 points per game. Their leading player right now, Isabella Zingaro, averages over 17 a game. So they've got some absolute flamethrowers when it comes to scoring the basketball. However, the one interesting note is that they were 5-7 on the road this year, and with how raucous and how tough it is to beat the Lady Raiders at the Murphy Center, that could be a huge asset. So Cleveland State, not the best road team, got to go go on the road tonight, and that may set up MTSU for a similar result to what they had against St. Bonaventure this past Monday. Now, going back to that last game, Blair Bogus was the key for the Lady Raiders with 20 points against the Bonnies. Her and Pfeiffer, of course, are going to be huge tonight. I expect both of them to have big rebounding numbers against Cleveland State. But I think this is a game where it's going to be the Elena Contreras show. I think she's going to be the one that will need to step up and need to show out, which I think she's absolutely going to do. Elena, as we've seen time and time again this season, can have these stretches where she just dominates from the three-point line and from deep. And I don't see any reason why she can't do that again tonight. And if she gets on a run like that, I don't know if Cleveland State has the defense to match what she's going to be putting out there. So I feel really good about that. I feel good about MTSU's physicality. I think they'll have that edge on Cleveland State as well. And all that put together, I think it will lead to an MTSU victory. I think Rick Insel picks up yet another win at the Murphy Center, and this team's march in the WNIT continues on, maybe to the ultimate crown. We'll see. I think they certainly have the capability to do so, but time will tell. When we come back, we'll talk NASCAR and Darlington. The track too tough to tame was not the case for Tyler Reddick this past weekend. We'll also talk about March Madness and the updated men's bracket Sweet 16 starting up tonight. All that and the Blue Raider Insider Report coming up after this break on All Sports Talk.
If someone asked, what's your more? Would you be surprised? Well, at First Bank, knowing your more is where we start. Whether it's seeing your kid's college graduation, seeing the world, or seeing the ocean from your patio, your more helps us see who you are. That's why First Bank offers you more time, more access to local lenders and leaders, more answers, and more products. So tell us, what's your more? First Bank. Bank local. Get more. Member FDIC.
It's time for the Doug Young Educator of the Month, proudly sponsored by City Tile and Floor Covering on Spring Street. We're over at Siegel Middle School to celebrate a teacher who really goes the extra mile. 7th grade ELA specialist Eva Carroll. As part of the 7C team, Miss Carroll does more than just teach English. She helps her students find their own voices. She is known for making literature click and for creating a classroom where every kid feels like they belong. Whether she's collaborating with her team or mentoring a student, her passion for Siegel Middle is impossible to miss. For her incredible heart and hard work, our Doug Young Educator of the Month, sponsored by City Tile and Floor Covering, receives a gift certificate to Toots and a beautiful plaque from L&K Trophy. Congratulations, Eva Carroll at Siegel Middle School, and thanks for all you do. To nominate your favorite teacher, go to wgnsradio.com/educator.
Local farmers, local meats, vegetables, and other produce at the Winter Spring Rutherford County Farmers Market.
Bundle up and make your way every Friday at Lane Agri Park.
Now you can watch some of your favorite radio shows. Try Big G TV. Subscribe for free on YouTube at News Radio WGNS and WGNS Radio on Facebook and X. Local content that matters to Rutherford County.
Next on All Sports Talk, it's the Blue Raider Insider Report with Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Women's basketball back at Murphy Center tonight, and postseason basketball as the Lady Raiders host Cleveland State in the Super 16 round of the WNIT. Tip-off is at 6:30 tonight. You can hear it here on WGNS beginning at 6 p.m. with the countdown to tip-off. General admission tickets are $15. You can purchase them online. As a matter of fact, they prefer that you purchase them online. All WNIT tickets are mobile. Fans are encouraged to get those as quickly as possible. You still have time. You can get those and then save them to your wallet on your phone, and that will help you navigate without having to deal with Wi-Fi. Parking will be available in the Greenland Drive lot for $5, and Middle Tennessee students receive free admission by presenting a current physical student ID at the ticket office window, where they'll be issued a complimentary ticket. Gates are now open. and BRAA members had an opportunity at 5 o'clock to get in early. Everything's general admission, so get in, sit where you want to sit, and you're good to go. This marks the first meeting ever between Middle Tennessee and Cleveland State's Vikings, and Middle making its 9th appearance in the WNIT. The Blue Raiders are 12-8 all time in the WNIT, going including a 2-1 record in the Super 16 round. Middle is coming off a 69-50 win over St. Bonaventure. 4 Blue Raiders scored in double figures. Blair Bogus had a double-double with a 20-point, rebound night, adding 3 assists and a block shot. Savannah Davis knocked down 4 threes on her way to 14 points while adding 3 rebounds. Elena Contreras had 12 points and 3 assists, and Kirsten Verhulst filled the stat sheet with 11 points, 8 rebounds, and a team-high 5 assists. And Coach Rick Insel will be at the helm tonight. Of course, Matt Insel has been announced as the new head coach once this season is over with, but the elder Insel will certainly be in charge tonight. All right, let's take a preview look at men's tennis. Number 43, Middle Tennessee will host William and Mary tomorrow at the Outdoor Tennis Complex. Middle holds the all-time series 3-0. The last meeting came in 2019 when the Blue Raiders earned a 5-1 victory. I will tell you, looking at the weather forecast tomorrow, you might want to keep an eye on social media. I think there's a decent chance this match could be moved indoors to the Adams Tennis Complex. Don't know that. That's just a guess looking at what the weather forecast for tomorrow afternoon looks like. All right, women's tennis on the road in Georgia to play a pair of matches this afternoon, taking on Georgia State, followed by a match against Kennesaw State tomorrow. The Blue Raiders hold a 3-0 all-time record against the Owls and lead the series 3-1 against the Panthers. And Middle Tennessee Track and Field travels to North Carolina to compete in the Raleigh Relays from this afternoon through Saturday. Conference USA Baseball this weekend. Middle Tennessee at home to take on New Mexico State starting Friday at 6 o'clock. FIU will be at Liberty. Kennesaw State will be at Delaware. Jacksonville State at Louisiana Tech. Western Kentucky at Sam Houston. And Missouri State will be at Dallas Baptist. On the softball side, the Lady Raiders on the road at Sam Houston. Delaware will be playing at Liberty. UTEP at Kennesaw State. Jack State at FIU. Missouri State at Louisiana Tech. And Western Kentucky at New Mexico State. That's it for today, folks. Women's basketball coming up at the top of the hour right here on the Big G, WGNS.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
Welcome back to All Sports Talk here on the Good Neighbor Network, WGNS. Thank you, Chipper, for the Blue Raider Insider Report. And I would highly advise anybody who is free tonight in Murfreesboro to go out to the Murphy Center. Go check out the Lady Raiders game against Cleveland State. They're going to need all the support that they can get, especially in a big tournament environment with the WNIT. They're going to want as many fans in that building as they can get. And let me just say that kind of environment in the postseason, it's unlike anything else. The Glass House, when the Lady Raiders are good and they're playing for as much as they are tonight with Rick Insel in the building again one more time, I think that there's a lot of reason to go check out this game. So I would highly advise that you do it. And if you can't make it out, then tune into the game right here on WGNS. We'll go live with pregame at 6 o'clock immediately following the conclusion of our show here. Switching gears, no pun intended, to NASCAR. The Cup Series went to Darlington this past weekend for the Goodyear 400, and wow, more history being made by Tyler Reddick. I mean, my gosh, what else can you say about this guy in 2311 and what they've been accomplishing early on in the season? We're only 6 races in, and it already feels like the champion has been decided, which it's rare to have a driver just come out of the gate and take over like this, but Tyler Reddick is certainly doing that. I think the only thing that compares to this is the stuff that I mean, and this may be a little bit early to say it, but the stuff that Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt were doing back in the 1980s and early 90s, I mean, just dominating the sport in the early going. And I think those are the only two other drivers to win 4 of the first 6. I think the graphic that I saw said that Earnhardt did it in 1987, Bill Elliott did it in 1992. Now, here's the thing. A dominant start does not ensure that you're going to win a championship. Earnhardt did win in 87. I mean, he was just ultra dominant that season. He had a lot of big memories that year as well. That was the same year he did the pass in the grass in the Winston, as it was known back then, now the All-Star race. Bill Elliott had a great start in 92, but he did not win the championship. That was the one that he lost to Alan Kulwicki. So consistency is the key here, especially with the chase now back to being at 10 races. So Reddick's going to have to stay consistent, but my gosh, he's got a massive points lead. He's now got a 4th win early in the season. Michael Jordan, I mean, I don't even know if he was doing this much winning in his basketball days. I mean, this is just, it's absurd how often and how easy it looked for the 45 team right now. And I mean, he was tremendous late in the race. That car just looked like it was in a different stratosphere compared to other people. A little bit of contact with Chris Buescher late in the race. I know that was a controversial thing for some people. Darlington is a place of contact. I don't think Reddick meant it intentionally. He's not that kind of driver for the most part. Made some contact with Buescher. Obviously, it stinks for RFK and for fans of Buescher and Brad Keselowski, who also had a great day in Darlington. But when a guy is just at that level, it's hard to do anything about him. And I don't know what it's going to take for other drivers and other teams to manage what Reddick has accomplished and kind of bring him back down to earth a little bit. We saw Blaney win a race. We saw Denny Hamlin win a race. But Tyler Reddick, I mean, if he keeps up on this pace, this is a guy who may take away 11 or 12 wins. And that's a lot to say. I know that is a huge amount to say. But, I mean, we haven't seen a driver just take over the sport like this in a long time. And Gordon's 13 wins in 1998, that may be the kind of level we're reaching. At least Kyle Larson's 10 wins in 2021. He's already almost halfway there. So Tyler Reddick very well could do that. The question that I think this brings to the table is Tyler Reddick going to be the next superstar for the sport? I think dominance by itself is certainly a good starting point. He's on Pat McAfee now. He's appeared on Monday Night Raw. He's doing all these celebrity shows. So Tyler Reddick is a name that's getting known a lot. And, of course, Michael Jordan's helping with that. Personality is going to be another huge point, because if you have a big personality and one that sticks out, people will gravitate towards you and towards your sport more. I think Tyler does have a pretty good personality for the sport. I'm curious to see how people will take to him as time goes on, and if he can become that next big Dale Earnhardt Jr. figure, or Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, somebody along those lines who just captivates people and draws viewership in by the bunches. With his dominance, it may be enough. I mean, even Max Verstappen in Formula One, for all of our F1 fans out there, he's a guy who can do that as well with just his sheer domination, and Tyler Reddick may be approaching that with what he's done this season. But it's important to remember, he has not won a championship yet. There's a long way to go. We still got 30 races left on the schedule. Tyler has not locked anything up for sure yet, but he's off to a darn good start, and it's going to be interesting to watch from here on out. One thing that's been the opposite of Tyler Reddick and has been chaotic over the years is March Madness, and the men's bracket has had chaos. It's also had order. It's been kind of a mixed bag so far this season. We're going to go over the bracket a little bit here in the final 4.5 minutes of the show here tonight. There were a couple of upsets in the first round. The big one, of course, High Point defeated Wisconsin 83-82 in a fantastic game. High Point, one of the best non-Power 4 programs in the men's basketball, and them beating Wisconsin, not a huge shock, I think, to a lot of people if you've been paying attention. 30-4 on the season. I picked them to advance in my bracket, and I think a lot of other people had as well, and for good reason. High Point, tremendous team, tremendous program, and they showed a lot of guts and a lot of power against Wisconsin, and that was enough to get them a victory. One of the best games of the first round, but that was not it as far as great games. There were a lot of other good ones as well. Of course, my goodness, the Kentucky-Santa Clara game was unbelievable. I mean, you talk about a signature moment in March Madness. That was one for the ages. And I feel so bad for Santa Clara because they absolutely looked like a team that was going to beat Kentucky late in that contest. Had everything set up for them. They got that late three-point shot. The game, for all intents and purposes, should be over. I mean, there's no way Kentucky can come back, and then that half-court buzzer beater, man. I mean, talk about shocking. That was power plant levels of shocking right there. It took the wind, I'd say, out of the sails of Santa Clara a bit. Kentucky was able to use that momentum that they gained from that half-court shot, bring it right into overtime, and they pick up the big 89-84 win in OT to advance to the second round. Didn't work out as well for them against Iowa State, but again, it doesn't work out for a lot of teams against these Big 12 juggernauts so far this season. So that's kind of understandable. But when you look at this bracket right now, there really aren't a lot of quote-unquote Cinderellas that have gotten far in the tournament. The biggest Cinderella, you could argue, is Texas, who's a number 11 seed. And calling Texas an underdog is a bit tricky because they have one of the highest payrolls in all of men's college basketball and college sports in general. And it does beg the question, is the era of the Cinderella going away in March Madness? And I don't want to say that for sure, but I will say, and a lot of people have said it before me, it is putting a damper on some of these potential upsets because a lot of this fresh talent, a lot of this good talent, young talent that's from these lower programs, quote unquote, ends up going to the teams that have the higher priced budgets. And I think that has contributed to this, and I hope it's more of just a phase rather than anything else. I mean, gosh, Siena almost upset Duke, so we may be way away from that. I mean, we could be a lot closer to an era of underdogs succeeding again than otherwise, especially since that game happened. But it's just something to keep in mind. Of course, Duke has had a couple of close calls this season, but that Siena game was something special. And I really, selfishly, I wanted Siena to pull the upset. Just couldn't get it done against Duke in that game, but still a fun one. Who's going to win the national title? Of the 16 teams left, we got a lot of the heavy contenders, a lot of the favorites still involved in deciding this one. I think, but before the tournament started, a lot of people liked what they saw from Arizona and from Duke. I think a lot of people thought that would be who would end up taking this championship. I'm going to say Michigan. I'm going to say that the Wolverines get it done. I like the way they've looked so far. Just beat down on poor St. Louis in the second round, who just clobbered Georgia in the first round. I thought that would be a bit of a closer game, but Michigan just handled them 95-72. Blew out Howard. They've looked like the team to beat at many points this season, and I think they're going to beat Bama in the Sweet 16. And look out if they get into that Final Four, because I don't know if anyone can hang with Michigan when they're at their best. Of course, they still got to contend potentially with teams like Duke,